Hella. Yeah, so this is the last presentation. I feel a little bit of pressure that it should be like the climax of the mass workshop. I have a feeling that I don't want to be the anti-climax, let us phrase it like that. I am maybe a little bit critical, and that might be because I've been working in academics for about 20 years, always trying to be at the forefront of innovation. But since 2 years, I'm a manager. So that it changes a little bit of my perspective, because now I also have to think about money. And smart surveys, in some cases, are more expensive, and every dollar or euro in my case I'm spending on smart surveys, I cannot spend on other issues related to, for example, doing surveys. So I have to pinpoint that everything I say is my own opinion, not necessarily that of Statistics Netherlands. It might also not necessarily be the opinion of one of my co-authors, Toepoel Schouten, but he's not here to object. So, this is called smart surveys. I don't know if you are familiar with the term. It's a term that is often used in official statistics. So I am from Statistics Netherlands, which is the Dutch Census Bureau. And with different official statistical bureaus, we have called these type of surveys that we have been talking about the last 1.5 days smart surveys. So it's basically everything related to using a smart device, a mobile phone, apps, data donation, storage on the phone, making Bluetooth connection, etc., and using that in our regular surveys. And in that sense, we really see smart surveys as a new mode of doing surveys, which it is not a supplement of web surveys, because it really needs a different infrastructure. So in addition to web surveys, face-to-face, telephone, paper surveys, we really see smart surveys as a new infrastructure. So why use smart surveys? And I've put a question mark and an explanation mark for all these 4 points, because people often assume that if you use smart surveys, this would be a solution for declining response rate, because young people, they have smartphones and they want to use their smartphones. Better quality data, because people are now being measured instead of answering questions. Often we assume that it is respondent friendly, and also that we have up-to-date technology. But yeah, it is sometimes an assumption. So for example, some things we cannot really measure with survey questions. So here you see a device, which is a device that measures air quality. We cannot really ask respondents what is the air quality in their home, in their bed, in their bathroom, in their bedroom. So then a device can come in handy. We have seen receipt scanning before. So we have a budget study, which typically has very poor response rates. And now we are really investigating if we can use apps where people can just scan their receipts, and should be respondent friendly, should maybe also be better quality data, but it's actually not that straightforward, as you probably know, because when people are scanning a receipt, so for example me, I always do grocery shopping once a week, so I have this very lengthy receipt. So how do you make a picture about that? If people have taken a receipt, that's only the beginning, right? Then everything in our office starts working. We need to have data scientists that make use of machine learning, training data. We need to have training data from supermarkets. We do not get all supermarkets. So the classification is sometimes actually not that good. We also work with a travel survey with apps, which is supposed to be respondent friendly, but you can imagine, and that's maybe also due to the fact that we want to do the best that we can. So we do not only ask, we do not only have the GPS coordinates, we also check with people, did you really stop at this place? And what was the goal of your visit? But you can imagine if you have a day with many visits to specific organizations, places, if you keep having to check what you have been doing, it's maybe not that respondent friendly. And also we've done a lot of research with physical activity trackers. And it's also something that Mick pointed out earlier. If you use a device, you're measuring something different than if you are asking questions. So if you are asking questions about physical activity, then the questions are typically about sports, or do you walk to your office and stuff like that. Well, if you are using an accelerometer, also vacuum cleaning, and you're just measuring different things. And then it's, for example, at a statistical office, we want to have time series, we want to be consistent over time. And then it is a problem that you might be measuring things better, but you also are measuring different things. So as I mentioned before, we see this as a new data collection mode, but it also comes like IT technology, methodology, organizational issues, legal issues, logistics. They are all very complex already, but with smart surveys, they've become even more complex. So for example, if you are building apps, you really need to make sure that everything in both the front end and the back end really works properly within your system. Methodology is becoming more and more complex. As I mentioned earlier, machine learning is really needed for all things that we are doing with these smart surveys, but also UI UX testing. We really need to have, we want to hire now a specific person who is responsible for this UI UX testing. It's not that straightforward as when I was starting working in survey methodology and we were testing questionnaires and you just did that on your regular PC. Now you have to test on different devices with different systems. So it becomes more and more complex. And also, yeah, if we are using smart surveys, we also might want to push people into these smart devices. We don't really see the smart surveys as a standalone method in that we can only use smart surveys. You typically have a questionnaire in addition to the smart the smart services. But you want to push people into the smart devices, which also takes specific methodology. Also in the organization, you really need to have a specific mindset in that you are willing to take chances and to say, okay, maybe we have a stop in our time series, maybe we have a breach, but now we are measuring things differently and better. And we really need to invest in what we call the smart survey channel, this new mode of data collection. When it comes to legal ethical issues, you have, again, maybe more difficult issues, more difficult risk assessments. You have to think about proportionality and subsidiarity decisions. For example, when we do a travel survey, normally we ask people to complete a survey, a diary on a weekday and a weekend day. With the travel app, we ask data for an entire week. But we have to talk to our privacy officer in order to get permission to ask for more data than we already do. And of course, the logistics become more important. The role of the interviewer is, for most of our surveys, what we have been doing is without interviewers, but we know that interviewers can really help in participation increasement. So a lot of decisions. And if you really think about how many surveys, at Statistics Netherlands we do many surveys, but it's only a handful of surveys that you can actually use these smart surveys for. So typically related to what we have been discussing here: travel, time use, health, consumption, and maybe also living conditions. So at Statistics Netherlands, we really need to make a fully integrated system within the existing landscape. Of course, you want to reuse the functionality. So you want to build some kind of modular app in which you can use specific modules for specific surveys. And it goes for both internal and external services of our organization. And yeah, it is expensive, so we really want to work together with other countries. But then you have the problem that every country has a different backend. As if you are used to working in cross-national surveys, you know you have similar problems here. So it's not that easy. So again, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it does require a large investment, a structural investment. So you cannot really say, okay, let's invest money for 1 or 2 years because you want to have a structural investment. There's not really a clear case of increased response rates. We see it for some surveys that, for example, younger people are more inclined to participate, but we do not really see an increase in response rates often. Also not when it comes to representativity. Measurement, as I mentioned, is different. I would argue it is better, but you often don't have the ground truth or a golden standard. And often discussions also focus on response rates because people find it more difficult to grasp the measurement error aspect. And it's far easier to comprehend the response rates aspect. So I wanted to present with you some numbers. It is very difficult, but at Statistics Netherlands, we really need to have a full agile team. You need to have a core team, data scientists, standard survey methodology people. Also, the pilot testing is more and more expensive. Often we also we cannot really use one pilot test because you have an app, you have respondents, you probably need to have several routes of pilot testing before you are confident that it actually is what you want to have. Again, different devices, if you use activity trackers, you have to send them out. Some don't get handed back in the mail. And also we have done some general surveys about people's attitudes towards smart surveys, because you really want to understand what is going on in people's mind. Is it like technical issues? Is it privacy issues? Is it ease? So yeah, my time is up. I am very enthusiastic about smart surveys, don't get me wrong, but yeah, our lives become more and more complex. I think you can agree on that. And then the question is, yeah, how do we cope with this? So that's my question to you.